I'm talking about fear, panic, and lockdowns, and irrationality and emotions.
So what do we get to do right now? What do we get to do? We get to wait at the bus stop for the trolley, for the tram. Huh?
We get to admire the mountains right here.
Okay.
So they finally made masks mandatory last week here, and it's, let's see, that was April 12th, it's the 16th, and I understand why silly laws like mandatory masks are passed, because the average person doesn't have an understanding of what, you know, I mean, opinions are one thing, but insights are another, and so even though they sound the same, and when you make everybody a suspect by saying, you know, you could be a asymptomatic carrier, which is just silly, because the only time you're going to be asymptomatic carrier is when you're getting sick. And the majority of population isn't getting sick and isn't going to get sick, so it's just misleading, and it makes everyone suspicious. And then these silly laws like mandatory masks are passed. That's fine. We'll suffer the silly mandatory law. It doesn't go against any of my convictions or anything, so it's fine. I got a mask. And there must be a big supply of them that have come in, because people seem to have the masks now around, whereas before there weren't any masks. In Ecuador, people within the healthcare industry they're profiteering off of these mandatory mask laws. So, you know, these kinds of things have their repercussions. Please understand, I am not saying that masks or social distancing don't help. That's not what I'm saying. I'm talking about fear, panic, and lockdowns, and irrationality and emotions. By the way, if you want to unsubscribe from my channel, the unsubscribe button's on the bottom right. The thing is, whenever was there a time that socially distancing yourself from sick people was not the right thing to do? Never. There never was a time. Socially distancing yourself from sick people always has been the thing that you should have been doing, but many people don't do it. They don't know anything about it, and they don't do it. I remember in the States, when I was providing home services, I would go into people's homes every week to provide the service, and every flu season, inevitably I would end up in people's homes that were sick. So I always knew and always did keep my distance from those people, even though I had to talk to them. You know, I had to sit there and talk to them, but I always kept my quote-unquote social distancing. So, you know, I'm just saying that there is more to know about something than, you know, what you read in the headlines and what you see on sensationalist articles and news media, and what's coming down from, you know, top-down information sources that, you know, don't have the credibility that you think they would, right? And in other news, we really want to thank you guys. You've been dropping relevant, and that's the key, relevant links in the comments about what's really going on. And some of these videos are very revealing. And it turns out that the statistics and information they've been fudged. They haven't been real. They've been messed around with. As I always say, the truth always comes out in the end at some point. We just don't know when the end's coming around as far as when, but it's starting to surface now. And so we made a video when this first broke out on the internet. I think it was a month or two ago, and we talked about virus and sickness and everything. Of course, people die from virus and sicknesses, but the fact that the numbers are being fudged and people are being lied to, and the general public is put into a situation where they're in lockdown, that's a big lie that has to get uncovered and is getting uncovered.
I think that, well, in Minnesota, as a physician, I received an email last week from the Department of Health coaching me on how to fill out death certificates. And I've never really received coaching from the Vital Statistics Agency in terms of how to do a death certificate. But basically, I felt like they were saying, you know, you don't have to have a confirmed laboratory test for COVID-19 in order to make the death certificate be COVID-19. So
Wait. Sir, I don't mean to interrupt you, but that and what you just said, I think is critically important. Can you repeat what you just said, please?
Well, last Friday, I received a 7-page document that sort of told me that if I had an 86-year-old patient that had pneumonia but was never tested for COVID-19, but sometime after she came down with pneumonia, we learned that she had been exposed to her son who had no symptoms, but later on was identified with COVID-19, that it would be appropriate to diagnose on the death certificate COVID-19. Now, we've not done that. If someone has the pneumonia after and it's in the middle of a flu epidemic, and I don't have a test on influenza, I don't diagnose influenza on the death certificate. I will say this elderly patient died of pneumonia.
I don't mean to interrupt you, but my heart is sinking right now as you're telling me this. You're a doctor. Why in the world would they be sending you out information to fill out death certificates, whether the person's been diagnosed with COVID-19 or not, but then to say in the death certificate this person's death was caused by COVID-19? That does not sound right to me. Why would they want to skew the number of deaths due to COVID-19?
Well, fear is a great way to control people.
I'm talking about fear, panic, and lockdowns, and irrationality and emotions. Because when you make it your business to know these kinds of things, because that's what you are interested in, then you can understand exactly what's happening and take the proper measures. So, moving on from that, are these the plagues of Egypt? Is this the plagues of Egypt? All this death? Well, it's debatable, but and there's definitely something going on. The plagues of Egypt, if you don't know, you should know. But they're plagues that came on the land in Egypt back in the day, you know, for the people that were enslaved, that wanted to, that were scheduled to be released from their slavery. Their master wouldn't release them, and so these plagues came on. Now that's a cause and effect statement, and it's not always apparent to the naked eye. What I'm saying is there a cause and effect this day and age? Yes, there absolutely is. There always is a cause and effect. So what is it that is causing these pandemics, and why are they happening, and are they going to happen? Are they going to keep happening? Yes, they are going to keep happening. So the plagues were contamination of water, contamination of food, contamination of their animals they use in the fields and that they use for food, and they came down with sicknesses, boils, pandemics. So these pandemics do happen, and this kind of pestilence on the land, there are times when these kinds of things happen. You know, they're happening right now as we speak, so we're actually living in history while history is being made. And what's happening at this moment in time is that these things are being manipulated for the purpose of some other purpose. So the public is being manipulated into this fear. You know, it's like, I'm sitting here walking through a park, there's nobody in the park, I'm walking through a park, and I'm exactly on the day that the masks were made mandatory. A cop turns around and tells me to put my mask on. I mean, there's no intelligence in that. You know, it's like there's no one in the park. The park is bigger than it's like a football field, and there's nobody there. And you're telling me as a person with authority to put you're telling me something. You're mandating. You have to do this. You have to put your mask on. But again, there's no intelligence behind that order. There's only the authority of force. I'm an authority. I'm the police. Do this. So that's the end result of the manipulation of facts and manipulation of what's going on. That's the end result of it so far. So a lot of people are pretty stressed out in a lot of these developing countries, but I'll just briefly go there. In a lot of the poorer sections of even Europe, not just developing countries like in southern Italy, people are really going through some really serious hardships because they're just week by week, hand to mouth. So, and this is Europe. There are people that are suffering because of the lockdown, because they can't work, they've got children to feed. So, you've got people in fear. People are motivated by fear. A lot of times they don't do anything until fear's in the air. And you have to ask yourself, who does fear benefit? Why does anyone want you to be in fear? And for a lot of people, it comes down to the knowledge of the actual facts of the matter. All right, so we're looking at the actual numbers here so that we can cut through some of this emotion and fear and panic. And
I put it into perspective.
And we're seeing that over 600,000 people die globally from the flu. That's a big, huge number compared to what we're hearing with the coronavirus.
1 million deaths by parasites in 2013.
1 million people die from parasitical infections globally. That's a huge number. So over 100 million people get harmed by going
to the doctor,
the
going to the
doctor.
hospital.
Yeah.
And out of those 138 million patients that got harmed, 2.6 million of them die yearly. That's
Yearly.
just in 1 year around the world.
Okay. Yeah, that's a sobering number. I mean, wow, that's just shocking.
But everybody's panicking over this coronavirus.
Yeah. But what can you do? I mean, when the authorities are spearheading this fear and panic, it's like, you got to do what you can for yourself and your family and your friends and everybody that you know to encourage them and yourself to not give in to this fear and panic.
The coronavirus is going to come back again next year at the same time. Oh no, here comes the coronavirus again. Everybody's going to start panicking about a flu. Because that's what this is. It's just another flu, and it's flu season.
One of the things that we can do is to stay positive and help your neighbor as much as you can. Put out good, positive information that helps people be less fearful, less needy, and if you know someone that's having a difficult time, take a food basket over there. Okay, and so thanks for listening.